Reese Morgan's hands trembled as she counted the bills one more time, spreading them across the chipped Formica counter like playing cards that might somehow add up to a different number. 3 ones, 4 singles, 42 cents in dimes and in pennies, $7.42. That was it. That was everything standing between her and the end of the month, still 6 days away. "Mama, I'm cold." The voice came small and scared from the living room. Reese closed her eyes and pressed her palms flat against the counter, feeling the cold seep through from the surface into her skin. She counted to 10. That's what the therapist at the free clinic had told her to do when the panic came. Count to 10. Breathe, center yourself, but breathing didn't pay bills, and counting didn't make the heat come back on. She looked at the thermostat mounted on the wall near the kitchen doorway. The digital display glowed faintly in the dim light. 52 degrees. It had been 58 when she'd checked an hour ago. The temperature was dropping and dropping fast. "Just a minute, baby," she called back, forcing brightness into her voice that she didn't feel. "Mama's coming." December 24th, 9:30 at night. Christmas Eve, and the heater had died 2 hours ago, right in the middle of the worst blizzard Detroit had seen in 20 years. The news was calling it historic, life-threatening, the kind of cold that killed. Reese walked the 5 steps from the kitchen to the living room of the tiny rental house. Colton sat on the couch, wrapped in both of the thin blankets. They owned his 2-year-old face pinched with confusion and discomfort. His pajamas, the ones with the cartoon trucks on them, looked impossibly small on him suddenly. When had he gotten so big? When had she gotten so tired? She scooped him up, feeling his little body trembling against hers. He was warm still, but for how long? The wind screamed outside, rattling the windows in their frames. Through the glass, she could see nothing but white. Snow came down so thick it looked like static on an old television. "Tell you what," she said, carrying him back to the couch and settling down with him in her lap. "We're going to have an adventure tonight. We're camping, right here in the living room." Camping. His eyes lit up the way only a toddler's could, finding magic where there was only desperation. "That's right, just you and me. We'll tell stories and stay up late, and it'll be our special Christmas Eve campout." She wrapped the blankets tighter around both of them and pulled him close. Her phone sat on the coffee table, the screen dark. 3% battery. She'd sold the charger last week to buy amoxicillin when Colton's ear infection wouldn't go away. $40 for the charger at the pawn shop, $63 for the medicine at the pharmacy. $103 total to make sure her baby could sleep without crying. Worth it, always worth it. But now the phone was dying and the heat was gone, and she had $7.42. Reese pressed her cheek against Colton's soft hair and felt the familiar burn behind her eyes. She wouldn't cry. She'd cried enough. Crying didn't change anything. She was 28 years old and she felt 50. 3 jobs and still drowning. 4 in the morning, she cleaned office buildings downtown, scrubbing toilets and emptying trash for people who never looked at her face. 8 to 4, she worked the counter at Davidson Diner, smiling through grease-splattered shifts while customers complained about cold coffee and left dollar tips. 7 at night until midnight, she stocked shelves at the Meyer supermarket when they had hours for her, which lately they didn't. 3 jobs, 80-hour weeks, and still it wasn't enough. Still they were here, freezing in a house that was supposed to be shelter. Her phone buzzed once. The screen lit up with a text message, and Reese felt her stomach drop before she even read it. Gareth Morrison, her landlord. "Heat's your problem. Mainline works fine. Your unit's separate. Call someone." Call someone with what money? With what phone that was about to die? Reese stared at the message until the screen went dark again. 2% battery now. She thought about her mama. 3 years gone this January, cancer that had spread everywhere before they caught it. Her mama would have known what to do. Her mama had always known what to do, had raised 2 girls by herself after their daddy left, had worked 2 jobs, and kept them fed and clothed and loved. Her mama had been everything, and now she was gone. Reese's sister Bryn was in California with her new husband, some tech guy who'd made it clear that Reese and her situation weren't welcome in their pristine suburban life. They hadn't spoken in 8 months. The last conversation had ended with Bryn saying she needed to focus on her own family now that Reese had made her choices and needed to live with them. As if she'd chosen this. As if she'd chosen Derek, chosen to believe his lies about loving her. chosen to get pregnant, chosen to have him disappear the day she told him about the baby. As if any of this was a choice. Friends had drifted away when the money got tight, when every conversation became about what she couldn't afford, what she couldn't do. People got tired of poverty. It made them uncomfortable. It reminded them how close they all were to the edge. So it was just her and Colton now, just the two of them against the world. Mama. Colton's voice was getting heavy with sleep. Can we have hot chocolate for camping? Reese's throat closed up. Not tonight, baby. We're out of hot chocolate. But tomorrow, I promise. Tomorrow, we'll have a special Christmas breakfast. She had no idea how she'd make that promise true. The refrigerator held half a gallon of milk, 4 eggs, and a heel of bread that was starting to go stale. The freezer was empty except for an ice tray and frost. Colton's breathing slowed and deepened. He was falling asleep despite the cold. Reese adjusted the blankets and sat there in the dim light, listening to the wind howl and watching the temperature slowly tick down. 51 degrees now. She should do something, call someone more, figure something out. But who with what she was out of options? Out of money, out of people who gave a damn. The panic was coming back, rising up in her chest like floodwater. She started counting again. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's when she heard it. A sound cutting through the wind. Low and deep, a rumble that made the walls vibrate. Reese froze. It wasn't thunder. Thunder didn't last this long. Thunder didn't growl. The sound got louder, closer. It reminded her of something, but her mind was too scattered to place it. She stood carefully, easing Colton down onto the couch without waking him, and walked to the window. Through the curtain of falling snow, she saw lights. Lots of them, moving slowly down her street. Motorcycles. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. The bikes pulled up to her curb one after another, their headlights cutting through the blizzard like search beams. Reese counted them as they parked. 5, 10, 15, 20. 25 motorcycles lined up outside her house. 25 men climbed off, all wearing leather jackets with patches she couldn't quite make out through the snow. Big men, broad shoulders hunched against the wind, long hair and beards crusted with ice. This wasn't random. This wasn't her neighborhood. Someone had sent them, but she didn't know anyone. She didn't know money because she never borrowed. She paid what she owed, even when it meant going hungry. One of them, the biggest one with a gray beard that reached his chest, turned and looked directly at her window. Even through the snow and darkness, she could feel his eyes on her. He started walking toward her door. Reese stepped back from the window, her mind racing. 25 men, 25 strangers, and her alone with a 2-year-old. She should call the police. But her phone was almost dead and she had no charger, and by the time anyone got here through this storm, if they even came at all, the knock came. 3 hard strikes against the door that it made her jump. Reese looked back at Colton, still asleep on the couch. His little chest rose and fell beneath the blankets. So small, so trusting. She walked to the door like she was walking to her own execution. Her hand touched the knob. The metal felt like ice. "Who is it?" Her voice came out thin and scared. "Name's Decker." The voice was rough-weathered but not harsh. "Declan Sutherland. We don't mean no harm. Storm's got us trapped. We're looking for shelter just for the night." Reese's laugh came out bitter. She couldn't help it. "You want shelter, mister? I can't even keep my own kid warm. This place is freezing." Silence on the other side of the door. "Then, ma'am, we've got nowhere else to go. Roads are closed. We've been riding for 6 hours trying to get ahead of this thing. We're freezing out here." Something in his voice cut through her fear. Desperation recognized desperation. She knew that tone, that edge of someone who'd run out of options. But 25 men, Hell's Angels probably, and her alone. Every instinct she had screamed danger. Everything she'd learned about survival, about being a woman alone in this world, told her to keep that door closed. But another voice whispered in the back of her mind, her mama's voice. "Baby, what if it was you out there?" Reese closed her eyes, took a breath, made a decision that would change everything. She opened the door. 25 pairs of eyes looked back at her. Snow caked their beards, their jackets, their shoulders. Their faces were red and chapped from the cold. They looked half frozen. They looked desperate. The big one, Decker, stood closest. Up close, he was enormous, 6.5 feet easy with arms like tree trunks. But his eyes were kind, tired and kind. "You can come in," Reese heard herself say, "but I've got a baby in here. You cause any trouble, any at all." "Ma'am?" Decker took off his leather gloves. His hands were shaking from the cold. "We're not here to cause trouble. We're just trying to survive this night, same as you." Reese stepped aside. They filed in one by one, stomping snow off their boots, being careful not to track too much inside. The house filled up fast. 25 men in a space meant for 2 people made the walls feel like they were closing in. The temperature rose immediately just from their body heat. Reese could feel it, the warmth they brought with them, mixing with the cold air. Colton sat up on the couch, woken by the noise. His eyes went huge. "Mama, it's okay, baby." Reese went to him quickly, picked him up. "These are guests. They needed help from the storm." One of the bikers, younger than the others, maybe early 30s, with a scar cutting through his eyebrow, caught sight of Colton and smiled. "Hey there, little man." Colton buried his face in Reese's shoulder. "Give him space," Decker said quietly to the others. "Everybody find a spot. Settle in. Don't touch nothing that ain't yours." They spread out, some sitting on the floor, others leaning against walls. The house went silent except for the wind outside and the sound of snow melting off leather jackets. Reese stood there holding Colton, her mind blank. What had she just done, let 25 strangers into her house on Christmas Eve? She must have finally snapped. The stress had finally broken something in her brain. Decker approached slowly, the way you'd approach a spooked animal. "Thank you, truly, we won't forget this." Reese's voice came out small. "I don't have much. No food to offer. No heat." Decker frowned. "No heat. Broke this afternoon. I can't afford to fix it." Decker turned to the others. "Nash, Hawk, check the furnace." 2 men stood immediately and headed toward the basement door without being told twice. One was lean and wiry with grease under his fingernails. The other was built like a tank with a full beard decorated with small braids. "Wait," Reese said. "You don't have to." "We do," Decker said simply. "You let us in from the cold. Least we can do is try to get you some heat." Reese felt something crack inside her chest. When was the last time someone had helped her? When was the last time someone had tried? The tears came before she could stop them. She turned away embarrassed, but Decker had already seen. "Hey," his voice was soft. "It's been a hard day, hasn't it?" Reese nodded, unable to speak. "It's going to be okay." From the basement, a voice echoed up. "Decker, come look at this." Decker disappeared downstairs. The other bikers started quietly talking among themselves, but they kept their voices low, kept glancing at Colton to make sure they weren't scaring him. Reese sat back down on the couch with Colton in her lap. This was surreal. 23 bikers in her living room, 2 more in her basement trying to fix her furnace. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. One of the men near the window spoke up. "Ma'am, you got any candles?" "Under the sink is a kitchen." He got up, an older guy, maybe 60, with white hair pulled back in a ponytail. Found the candles, 5 of them, half melted from last winter. He lit them and placed them around the room. The flickering light made everything feel almost peaceful. "I'm Merrick," the white-haired man said. "People call me Old Mac. That guy checking your furnace, the tall one, that's Nash. Best mechanic in 3 states. If it can be fixed, he'll fix it." "And if it can't?" Reese asked. Merrick shrugged. "Then we'll figure something else out." Decker came back upstairs. Nash and Hawk, the one with the braided beard, followed behind him. Decker's face was grim. "Your heat exchanger's cracked," Decker said. "That's not something we can patch tonight. It needs to be replaced." Reese's heart sank. "How much does that cost?" "With parts and labor." Nash wiped his hands on his jeans. "Probably 1,500, maybe 2 grand. $2,000. Reese almost laughed. She might as well have said 2 million. "Okay," Reese said quietly. "Thank you for looking." Decker and Nash exchanged glances, something unspoken passed between them. "But that's not all we found down there," Nash said. "You got pipes that are about to burst, wiring that's not up to code, and your water heater is held together by prayers. How much to fix all that?" The question came out automatically, even though she already knew the answer didn't matter. She couldn't afford any of it. "Don't worry about the money right now," Decker said. "For tonight, we'll keep the candles going. Body heat from all of us should keep this place warmer than it was." He was right. Already the house felt less frigid. 25 large men generated a lot of warmth. Colton had relaxed enough to peek out from Reese's shoulder. He pointed at Hawk, who had the braided beard. Funny. Hawk grinned. You like my beard, little man? Colton nodded shyly. Got any other kids? One of the bikers asked Reese. No, just Colton. Just us. Dad in the picture? No. Reese's voice was firm. She wasn't talking about Derek. Not tonight, not ever. The biker nodded, reading the message loud and clear. Well, kid's lucky to have you. Reese didn't feel lucky. She felt exhausted. Decker sat down on the floor near the couch, his back against the wall. How long you been on your own? Since before Colton was born. 2 years. Family? Gone or far away, same difference. Decker nodded slowly. We know something about that. Most of us come from broken families. That's why we ride together. Make our own family. Hell's Angels, Reese asked. Yeah, Detroit chapter. We're not what people think, though. Most of us are veterans. All of us have day jobs. We ride. It's the one thing that makes sense. What were you doing out in this storm? Coming back from a toy drive in Flint, Decker said. We do it every Christmas Eve. Collect toys, deliver them to shelters and group homes. We were trying to get back before the storm hit hard, but we got caught. Reese looked around at the men in her living room. They didn't look like monsters. They looked tired. They looked human. I'm sorry, Reese said, for judging. When I opened the door, I thought, you thought we were dangerous, Decker finished. Can't blame you for that. World teaches women to be afraid of men like us. Are you dangerous? Decker considered their question. To people who hurt the weak, yeah, we're very dangerous. But to a single mom trying to keep her kid warm on Christmas Eve, he shook his head. You got nothing to fear from us. Reese wanted to believe him. Strangely, she did. Colton yawned a big toddler yawn that made several of the bikers smile. He should sleep, Merrick said gently. Kid needs rest. We don't have much in the way of bedrooms, Reese said. Just the one, and it's not any warmer than out here. Put him down in there, Decker said. We'll keep watch out here. Make sure the candles stay lit. Keep the place as warm as we can. Reese hesitated, then stood. She carried Colton to the bedroom, barely bigger than a closet with a twin mattress on the floor and nothing else. She laid him down and covered him with the one good blanket she'd been saving. Night, baby. Night, Mama. Colton's eyes were already closing. When Reese came back to the living room, the atmosphere had shifted. The men were more relaxed now, talking quietly. One of them had pulled out a harmonica and was playing something soft and bluesy. Another was shuffling a deck of cards. You play poker? The card guy asked Reese. Not really. We'll teach you. Nothing serious, just something to pass the time. Reese sat down on the floor with them. 5 bikers and her playing 5-card draw by candlelight while a blizzard raged outside. If someone had told her this morning that this was how her Christmas Eve would end, she would have thought they were crazy. But here she was, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel alone. So what's your story? Merrick asked as he dealt. How'd you end up here? Reese picked up her cards. 2 pair, not bad. Long story. We got all night, Decker said. Reese looked at him, then at the others. Their faces were open, genuinely curious. When was the last time someone had asked about her life and actually wanted to know? I grew up in Detroit. She started. East Side. My mama raised me and my sister by herself. Dad left when I was 4. Mama worked 2 jobs, kept us fed and clothed. She was everything. Reese's voice caught. She threw down a card, picked up another. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. By the time they found it, it had spread everywhere. I'm sorry, Decker said quietly. After she died, I kind of fell apart. Met a guy, Derek. He was charming at first. Told me everything I wanted to hear. By the time I realized he was bad news, I was pregnant. Reese threw down another card. He left the day I told him. Never saw him again. His loss, Hawk muttered. I tried to make it work. Kept my job at the diner, saved up for the baby. But after Colton was born, the medical bills, they buried me. I couldn't pay rent and bills and daycare, so I found cheaper rent here. Then I took on more jobs. But no matter how much I work, it's never enough. The room was quiet except for the wind and the harmonica. You're doing a good job, Nash said. Kid looks healthy, happy. He doesn't know how poor we are, Reese said. That's the one thing I've managed to protect him from. But I don't know how much longer I can keep that up. What do you want? Decker asked. If money wasn't an issue, what would you do? Reese smiled sadly. I'd open a restaurant, soul food, my mama's recipes, the kind of food that fills you up and makes you feel like somebody loves you. I've got the recipes, got the ideas, but dreams don't pay bills. Dreams can become reality, Merrick said, with the right push. Reese shrugged. Maybe in a different life. They played cards for another hour. Reese won a hand loss too. The bikers told stories about their rides, about the military, about brothers they'd lost along the way. Every single one of them had known hardship. Every single one of them understood struggle. By midnight, exhaustion was pulling at Reese's eyelids. You should sleep, Decker said. We'll take shifts, keep the candles going. I can't ask you to. You're not asking, we're offering. Reese was too tired to argue. She lay down on the couch. Someone she didn't see who draped a leather jacket over her like a blanket. It smelled like motorcycle exhaust and cologne and something else. Something safe. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow, say they'd leave. Tomorrow she'd be alone again with a broken furnace and $7.42 and no idea how to fix her life. But tonight, for just tonight, she wasn't alone. And that was enough. Reese woke to the smell of coffee. Her eyes opened slowly, confused. Coffee? She didn't have coffee, hadn't been able to afford it in weeks. She sat up on the couch, the leather jacket sliding off her shoulders. Morning light filtered through the windows, gray and weak. The storm had stopped. Everything outside was white and still. In her kitchen, Hawk stood at the stove, somehow making something out of nothing. Decker sat at her tiny table with Nash, both of them holding mismatched mugs. Morning, Decker said. Hope you don't mind. Hawk raided your pantry. He's a magician with scraps. Reese stood, her body stiff from the couch. Where did the coffee come from? Nash ran to his bike, Decker said, holding up his mug. Had an emergency stash in his saddlebag. It's instant, but it's hot. Hawk turned from the stove. Found 4 eggs, that bread, and some butter that's probably older than your kid. Making French toast. It ain't much, but it'll feed the little guy. Reese's throat tightened. You don't have to. Already done, Hawk said. Colton appeared in the bedroom doorway, rubbing his eyes. Morning, baby. The toddler's eyes went wide when he saw the biker still there. He'd probably thought last night was a dream. Hey, little man, Hawk called. You hungry? Colton nodded, suddenly shy again. Come here, Reese said, picking him up. She carried him to the table and sat down. Decker immediately stood and offered her his chair. I can stand, Reese protested. So can I. Sit. She sat. Hawk brought over 2 plates. One for Colton with French toast cut into small pieces. One for Reese with the same. Eat up, Hawk said. We already had ours. Reese looked at the plate, then at Hawk. You made this from 4 eggs. What did you guys eat? We split a couple protein bars, Nash said. Don't worry about us. Reese's hand shook as she picked up the fork. These men, these strangers, had given Colton and her the food and taken almost nothing for themselves. Colton dug in immediately. The French toast disappeared fast. He was starving. Reese had been rationing his food for days, trying to make everything stretch. Good, Hawk asked. Good, Colton said through a mouthful. The other bikers started waking up, stretching, groaning about sleeping on hard floors. But nobody complained. They just started organizing themselves, quiet and efficient. Merrick came over to the table. Decker, we got a problem. What kind? Bikes are buried. 3 feet of snow, at least. And the roads aren't plowed yet. Decker swore under his breath. How long you think? City's saying maybe by tonight, maybe tomorrow. Reese felt panic rising. I have to work. I have a shift at the grocery store at 2. Decker looked at her. Ma'am, nothing's open. Whole city's shut down. It's Christmas Day. Christmas. Reese had forgotten. She'd been so focused on survival that she'd forgotten it was actually Christmas. I need that shift, Reese said quietly. Every hour counts. Not today, Decker said. Today you rest. I can't afford to rest. You can't afford not to. Decker's voice was gentle but firm. You're running on empty. I can see it. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? Reese didn't answer because she couldn't remember. Colton finished his French toast and climbed down from Reese's lap. He walked right up to Hawk. More. Hawk laughed. Kid's got an appetite. I like that. He looked at Reese. There any stores within walking distance? Corner store 3 blocks, but it's probably closed. Let me check. Hawk grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Wait, Reese called. I only have $7. Hawk turned back. I got it. No, I can't. You're not. I'm buying breakfast for myself and my brothers. You and the kid just happen to be here. He winked and walked out. Reese sat there overwhelmed. Colton had wandered over to Merrick, who was showing him a silver ring with a skull on it. That's a scary face, Colton said. So, nah, he's smiling. See, Merrick pointed. He's happy. Happy skull, Colton repeated. That's right, little man. Reese watched them, this hardened biker being impossibly gentle with her son. Nothing made sense anymore. The world had turned upside down. Decker sat down next to her in the chair Nash had vacated. We need to talk about your furnace. There's nothing to talk about. I can't afford to fix it. What if I told you we could? Reese looked at him. What? Nash knows a guy who owes him a favor. Big favor. He's going to make a call. Get you a new heat exchanger at cost. We'll install it ourselves. That's still hundreds of dollars. We'll cover it. Reese stood up so fast her chair scraped. No, absolutely not. I don't take charity. It's not charity, Decker said calmly. It's paying forward. Someone helped me once when I had nothing. Now I help you. Someday you'll help someone else. That's how it works. I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to. Reese's vision blurred with tears. Why are you doing this? Decker stood and faced her. Because last night you opened your door to 25 strangers in the middle of a blizzard. You had every reason to say no, every reason to be scared, but you let us in anyway. That takes courage. That takes heart. And people with heart deserve better than frozen houses and empty fridges. Nash appeared from somewhere. Made the call. Heat exchanger will be here by noon. We'll have you up and running by tonight. Reese couldn't speak. She just shook her head, tears spilling over. Hey, Decker said softly. It's okay to accept help. Doesn't make you weak. Makes you human. The front door burst open. Hawk came in carrying 2 grocery bags. Store was open, he announced. Old man running it said he opened just for emergencies. Figured this qualified. He started unpacking eggs, bacon, bread, milk, orange juice, cereal, coffee. Real coffee. How much did that cost? Reese asked. Don't worry about it. Hawk. I said don't worry about it. His voice wasn't harsh, just final. More bikers gathered around the kitchen. Someone found a pan. Someone else started cracking eggs. Within minutes, the tiny house smelled like bacon and coffee, and something Reese hadn't felt in years. Home. Colton was in heaven running between bikers showing off his stuffed dog to anyone who'd look. The men played along, acting impressed, asking the dog's name, making the toddler giggle. Reese stood in the middle of it all, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. Merrick handed her a mug of real coffee. Drink, you look like you needed it. She took it. The warmth spread through her hands up her arms and to her chest. I don't understand why you're all being so nice. You don't have to understand, Merrick said. Just accept it. They ate breakfast together, 25 bikers, 1 single mom, and a toddler who thought he was the luckiest kid alive. Reese tried to remember the last time Colton had eaten this much, had this much protein. Months, probably. After breakfast, the men organized themselves without being told. Some cleaned the kitchen. Others started shoveling the sidewalk. Nash and 2 others disappeared into the basement with tools. Decker pulled Reese aside. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be straight with me. Okay. Are you in danger? Is someone threatening you? An ex, a dealer? Anybody? Reese shook her head. No, nothing like that. I'm just poor. That's the only danger. Decker nodded slowly. Poverty is its own kind of violence. You sound like my mama. Smart woman, your mama. The smartest. Reese looked down at her coffee. She'd be ashamed of where I ended up. She'd be proud you're still fighting. Reese wasn't sure about that, but she didn't argue. Around 11, a truck pulled up outside. A guy climbed out carrying a large box. Nash met him at the door, shook his hand, took the box. Heat exchanger, Nash announced. Let's get to work. 4 of them went into the basement. Reese could hear them down there, tools, clanging voices, calling out instructions. Hawk distracted Colton with a card trick. How'd you do that? Colton demanded when Hawk pulled a quarter from behind the toddler's ear. Magic little man, pure magic. By 2 in the afternoon, Nash emerged from the basement covered in dust and grease. All fixed, heat exchanger pipes, wiring water heater. You're solid for at least 5 years, probably 10. How can I ever thank you, Reese asked. Nash shrugged. You already did, last night. The bikers started gathering their things, preparing to leave. The roads were finally plowed. They could get home. Colton panicked when he saw them packing. No stay. We gotta go, little man, Hawk said, kneeling down. Got our own families waiting. But you're my friends. We are your friends, and friends don't disappear just because they leave. We'll see you again. Promise, promise, Decker shook Reese's hand. You take care of yourself and that boy. I will. Thank you for everything. Keep fighting, Decker said. You're stronger than you know. They filed out one by one, starting their bikes. The noise was incredible. 25 engines roaring to life. Colton watched from the window, waving at each one. Reese stood in the doorway as they pulled away, disappearing down the street until the sound faded to nothing. The house felt empty without them. But it was warm. God, it was warm. Colton tugged on her sleeve. Mama, I'm hungry. Reese looked in the kitchen. Hawk had left behind enough food for a week. She made Colton a sandwich with real turkey from the deli and watched him eat it, her heart so full it hurt. That night, she put Colton to bed in a warm room with a full belly and clean pajamas that one of the bikers had somehow produced from somewhere. Best Christmas ever, Colton mumbled as he drifted off. Reese kissed his forehead. Yeah, baby, best Christmas ever. She went to the living room and sat on the couch. Tomorrow, reality would come back. The bills, the poverty, the struggle. But tonight she had heat and food and something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Decker, just checking, heat's still working. Reese smiled and typed back. Heat's perfect, thank you again. Don't mention it, get some rest. Another text came through before she could put the phone down. One more thing, that dream you mentioned, the restaurant, how serious were you about that? Reese stared at the message for a long time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Finally, she typed why. The response came immediately. Because dreams don't have to stay dreams. Meet me tomorrow. I want to show you something. Corner of Davidson and 3rd, noon. Trust me. Reese's heart started beating faster. She looked around her small, warm house. Looked at the kitchen where Hawk had made breakfast. Looked at the doorway where 25 strangers had filed through. Her mama's voice echoed in her head. Baby, when opportunity knocks, you don't ask for ID. You open the door. Reese typed back, I'll be there. She put the phone down and sat in the quiet warmth, feeling something shift inside her chest. Something that felt dangerously close to possibility. Reese stood on the corner of Davidson and 3rd, watching her breath cloud in the cold December air. The storm had passed, leaving Detroit buried under 3 feet of snow that sparkled in the weak afternoon sun. The streets were still mostly empty, only a few cars crawling through the plowed lanes. It was December 26th, the day after Christmas, the day after everything changed. Colton held her hand bundled in his winter coat that was getting too small. She'd need to find him a new one soon, add it to the list of things she couldn't afford. A familiar rumble echoed down the street. Reese's stomach tightened with something that wasn't quite fear anymore. Maybe anticipation, maybe hope. Decker's motorcycle appeared, followed by Nash's. Just the two of them this time. They pulled up to the curb and cut their engines. You came, Decker said, climbing off his bike. You asked me to trust you. Reese adjusted her grip on Colton's hand. So here I am. Good. Decker gestured down the block. Walk with me. They moved slowly through the snow, Colton between them, his little boots crunching. Nash followed a few steps behind. Halfway down Davidson Street, Decker stopped in front of a storefront. The windows were dirty, the interior dark. A faded "For Lease" sign hung crooked in the glass. This is it, Decker said. Reese looked at the building. It was small, wedged between a laundromat and a cell phone repair shop. The paint was peeling, the awning was torn, but something about it pulled at her. What is it? She asked. Your restaurant. The words hung in the cold air between them. Decker, I told you, that's a dream. I don't have money for... What if you did? Nash pulled out his phone, scrolled, showed her a screen. Owner's a friend of mine. Vincent Castellano. Ran a diner here for 30 years. Closed 6 months ago. Kitchen still intact. Tables, chairs, everything. Reese stared at the photo on Nash's phone. Industrial stove, prep stations, walk-in freezer. I can't afford to rent restaurant space. What if we help? Decker asked. What if we invested? Reese shook her head. You've done too much already. Here's the thing, Decker said. We've been looking for a community project, something to give back. We do the toy drive every year, but we wanted something bigger, more permanent. So you want to open a restaurant? No, we want to help you open a restaurant. Nash tucked his phone away. You've got the talent, the vision. That's more than most people got. Talent doesn't pay for permits and equipment and food costs and employees. Reese's voice came out harder than she meant. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is crazy. Most good things are, Decker said. Colton tugged on Reese's coat. Mama, I'm cold. I know, baby. She looked at Decker, and he needed to get him home. Just look inside first, Decker said. 5 minutes, then I'll drive you home. Nash was already at the door with a key. Vincent had given it to him that morning. The inside smelled musty, like it had been closed up too long. Dust covered everything, but the bones were good. The kitchen and back was professional grade. 6-burner stove, industrial oven, prep stations that just needed cleaning. Reese walked through the space slowly, her imagination already running. Tables here, bar seating there, a chalkboard menu on that wall. She could see it. God help her, she could actually see it. How many seats, she asked. 35, maybe 40 if you squeeze, Nash said. That's small. Start small, grow big, Decker said. You don't want to overextend right out the gate. Reese ran her hand along the counter. $1,500 a month rent, plus utilities, plus permits, plus food costs, plus employees. The numbers piled up in her head like snowdrifts. I'd need to quit my other jobs, she said. Focus on this full time. That's the idea. And childcare for Colton while I'm working. We'll figure it out, Decker said. One problem at a time. Reese turned to face them. Why are you doing this, really? Decker took a long breath. 10 years ago, I was homeless, living under an overpass, drinking myself to death. A guy named Carlos Martinez pulled me out, got me into a program, helped me get clean, gave me a job at his garage. He saved my life. Decker's voice got rough. Carlos died 5 years ago, heart attack. I never got to repay him, so now I pay it forward. That's what we all do. That's what the club is really about. We take care of our own, Nash added, and our own just expanded to include you. Reese felt her eyes burning. I don't know if I can do this. You can, Decker said, but you got to believe it first. She looked around the empty restaurant one more time. Her mama had always said God opens doors, but you got to walk through them. This was the door. She took a breath, let it out. Okay, she said, let's do it. Nash clapped her on the back so hard she stumbled forward. Decker shook her hand with both of his, smiling wider than she'd seen yet. You won't regret this, he promised. I already regret it, Reese said, but I'm doing it anyway. That night after Colton was asleep, Reese called her sister. They hadn't spoken in 8 months. The phone rang 4 times before Bryn answered. Reese, her sister sounded surprised. Everything okay? Yeah, I just wanted to tell you something. What? I'm opening a restaurant. Silence on the other end. Then you're doing what? A restaurant. Soul food. Mama's recipes. With what money? There it was. The doubt, the judgment. I got investors, Reese said, keeping her voice even. Investors. Bryn laughed sharp and bitter. What investors want to fund a single mom with no experience? People who believe in me. Reese, come on. This is crazy. You can't even afford rent half the time. I got help from those biker guys, the ones Colton mentioned. Oh my God, Reese, are you hearing yourself? You're trusting criminals to fund a business. They're not criminals. They're veterans. They're good people. They're Hell's Angels. I saw your Facebook post. Bryn's voice rose. Mom would be horrified. Reese felt something cold settle in her chest. Don't bring Mama into this. She'd tell you the same thing I am. This is a mistake, a huge mistake. And when it falls apart, don't come crying to me. I won't, Reese said quietly. I never have. She hung up. Colton stirred in his bed but didn't wake. Reese sat in the dark living room, Bryn's words echoing. What if she was right? What if this was a mistake? Her phone buzzed. A text from Decker. Stop overthinking. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we build something. How did he know she was overthinking? She typed back, how do you know I'm overthinking? Because that's what people do the night before they change their lives. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Reese stared at those words until her eyes blurred. Trust yourself. When was the last time anyone had told her to do that? She fell asleep on the couch and woke to pounding on her door at 5:30 in the morning. Rise and shine, Hawk's voice boomed through the door. We got work to do. Reese stumbled out of bed, threw on old jeans and a t-shirt, and opened the door. Hawk stood there with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. Figured you'd need fuel. Got one for Colton, too. By 6, they were at the storefront. Decker and Nash had already arrived with a truck full of supplies. Cleaning supplies, painting equipment, tools, ladders, everything they'd need. First step, Decker announced. We clean every surface, every corner, every inch. This place needs to pass health inspection, which means it needs to be spotless. They worked for hours. Reese scrubbed counters until her hands were raw. Nash and 2 other bikers cleaned the kitchen equipment, taking apart grills and ovens to get every bit of built-up grease. Hawk tackled the walk-in freezer. Decker and Merrick worked on the dining room. Colton helped by sweeping the same spot over and over with a child-sized broom Hawk had produced from somewhere. Around noon, Reese's back was screaming. She leaned against the counter, breathing hard. Break time, Decker called. Everybody out. Lunch. They sat on the curb outside eating sandwiches from a sub shop down the street. Reese's whole body hurt, but it was a good hurt, the kind that came from actually accomplishing something. Across the street, a woman stood watching them, older, maybe 60, with suspicious eyes. She'd been watching since they arrived. Who's that? Reese asked. Decker glanced over. Mrs. Lowell owns the laundromat. Ignore her. But Mrs. Lowell didn't ignore them. She crossed the street and walked right up to Decker. You planning on bringing trouble to this block? She demanded. No, ma'am, just opening a restaurant. A restaurant run by bikers? I don't think so. We got families here. Children. We don't need your kind around. Reese stood up. Your kind? What kind is that? Mrs. Lowell's eyes flicked to Reese, then back to Decker. I know what Hell's Angels are. I know what they do. You don't know anything. Reese said, her voice harder than she'd ever heard it. These men saved my life. They're helping me start a business. They're better people than anyone who'd judge them without knowing them. You'll see, Mrs. Lowell said. You'll see what kind of trouble comes. Don't say I didn't warn you. She walked back to her laundromat. Reese's hands were shaking. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize, Decker said. That was perfect. But she's going to be a problem. Let her be a problem, Hawk said. We've dealt with worse. They went back to work. By evening, the place looked 100 times better. Still not finished, but no longer abandoned and forgotten. The next morning started the same way. 5:30 wake-up call from Hawk. Coffee and food. Work by 6. On January 2nd, Reese's phone rang during a break. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Reese Morgan? A woman's voice, official and cold. Yes, who's this? I'm calling from Child Protective Services. We received a report about your son's living conditions. I need to schedule a home visit. Reese's blood went cold. What? What report? I can't disclose the source, but we take all reports seriously. Are you available tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I'm working. This is mandatory, Miss Morgan. Tomorrow at 2, or we'll have to escalate. The line went dead. Reese sat in her car in the restaurant parking lot, her whole body numb. Someone had called CPS. Someone wanted to take Colton. She knew exactly who. Mrs. Lowell. Reese called Decker before she even started the engine. They called CPS, she said, her voice breaking. Someone reported me. They're coming tomorrow at 2. Who called them? That woman, Lowell, had to be. Nobody else has a problem with me. Decker swore. Where are you? At the restaurant. Colton's in the car. Stay there. I'm coming. 10 minutes later, Decker's motorcycle pulled up. He walked to her car and opened the door. Reese was shaking so hard she couldn't hold the steering wheel. They're going to take him. They're going to say I'm unfit because I'm working with bikers, because I quit my jobs, because I'm starting a restaurant that doesn't exist yet. They're not taking anybody, Decker said firmly. Not on my watch. You can't stop CPS. Watch me. Decker pulled out his phone and made a call. Vivian, yeah, it's Decker. Emergency. Someone called CPS on Reese. They're coming tomorrow at 2. Can you be there? Pause. Good. Bring documentation. Everything we got. Another pause. Yeah, I think so too. See you tomorrow. He hung up and looked at Reese. Vivian Price is going to be at your house when they show up. She deals with CPS cases all the time. She knows how to handle this. What if they don't care? What if they decide I'm a bad mother? Then they're idiots, and Vivian will tear them apart in court. But it won't come to that. Your house is clean. Colton's healthy and happy. You've got steady income. They've got nothing. I don't have steady income. I quit 2 of my jobs. To start a business. That's initiative, not instability. Decker crouched next to the car so he was eye level with her. Listen to me. You're a good mother. The best. Anyone who spends 5 minutes with you and Colton can see that. CPS isn't going to take a happy, healthy kid from a loving parent just because some bitter old woman made a phone call. You don't know that. Yeah, I do, and tomorrow you're going to know it too. Reese closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe. In, out, in, out. Okay, she finally said. Okay. The next morning, Vivian Price showed up at Reese's house at 11:30 with a briefcase and calm confidence. First things first, Vivian said, walking through the house. This place is clean, well-maintained, appropriate, washed a toddler. Good. She opened the refrigerator. It was still full from what Hawk had bought. Good. Show me Colton's room. They walked to the bedroom. The mattress had clean sheets. Colton's clothes were folded. He had toys. The room was warm. The heat works now. Yes, the bikers fixed it. Perfect. Do you have documentation of that? Nash said he'd send me receipts and permits. Vivian pulled out her phone and texted someone. I just told Nash. He'll have them to you within the hour. She sat on the couch and pulled out papers. They're going to ask about your employment, your support system, Colton's health and development, your mental state, and your relationship with the bikers. My relationship. They'll want to know if you're romantically involved with any of them, if they're living here, if they're around Colton unsupervised. No to all of that. They're friends. That's it. Good. Stick to that. Don't elaborate unless asked directly. Don't volunteer information. Answer questions simply and honestly. Nash arrived 30 minutes later with a folder an inch thick. Permits for the furnace repair. Receipts for materials. Photos of the work. A signed statement from him attesting to the repairs being up to code. This is perfect, Vivian said, flipping through. This shows you made responsible emergency repairs to ensure your child's safety. That's exactly what a good parent does. At exactly 2 p.m. as Honda Civic pulled up, a woman in her 40s climbed out carrying a tablet in a tired expression. Vivian opened the door before the woman could knock. Miss Morgan is expecting you. I'm Vivian Price, Miss Morgan's attorney. The woman's eyebrows went up. Attorney? Miss Morgan wanted to ensure this visit was documented properly and her rights protected. I'm sure you understand. The woman her badge said Janet Morse looked annoyed but unsurprised. Fine, let's make this quick. She walked in and looked around. Her eyes scanned every corner, every surface. Miss Morgan, I'm Janet Morse from Child Protective Services. We received a report alleging unsafe living conditions and inappropriate associations. I need to assess the home and interview you and your son. What exactly was alleged? Vivian asked. Janet consulted her tablet. Insufficient heating, inadequate food, and exposure to dangerous individuals. Specifically association with a motorcycle gang. Hell's Angels, Reese corrected. And they're not dangerous, they're my friends. Friends who are known criminals. Citation needed, Vivian said smoothly. Do you have documentation of any member currently involved in criminal activity? Janet's jaw tightened. The organization itself is classified as an outlaw motorcycle club, which is not illegal. Association is protected under the First Amendment. Unless you have evidence of actual criminal activity affecting the child, that allegation is baseless. Janet turned her attention to Reese. Tell me about your employment. I work at Davidson Diner 4 mornings a week. I'm also in the process of opening my own restaurant. You quit 2 jobs to start a business. I made a strategic decision to focus my energy on a venture with higher earning potential in better hours, which will ultimately benefit my son. I have investors assigned lease and all proper licensing in process. Janet made notes. Who are these investors? Community members who believe in my business plan. The Hells Angels. Among others, Vivian cut in. Are you suggesting it's neglectful to accept investment capital from legitimate sources? Janet's face flushed. I'm trying to establish whether Miss Morgan is making sound decisions. She is, Vivian said. Would you like to see documentation? She produced the folder. Janet flipped through it, her expression growing more frustrated with each page. The heating, Janet asked, was broken. I made emergency repairs. Everything is up to code and documented. The house is currently 72 degrees. You can verify. Food, fully stocked. Feel free to check. Janet walked to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. She stared at the contents for a long moment, then closed it. I need to speak with your son. Colton Sound was sitting on the couch playing with his stuffed dog. He looked up when Janet approached. Hi, Colton. I'm Janet. Can I ask you some questions? Colton looked at Reese. She nodded. Okay, Colton said softly. Do you like living here? Yeah. Is your mommy nice to you? Uh-huh. Mama's the best. Do you have enough food to eat? Lots of food. Hawk brings food all the time. And bacon. I love bacon. Who's Hawk? My friend. He's got a funny beard. Janet made more notes. Has anyone ever hurt you? Colton shook his head. Mama says we don't hurt people. We help people. What about the men on motorcycles? Are you scared of them? No, they're nice. Decker and Nash and Hawk and Merrick. They fixed our house and they're helping Mama make a restaurant. I picked the bathroom color. It's blue. Janet looked at Colton's bright, happy face and seemed to deflate slightly. Thank you, Colton. She stood and turned to Reese. Miss Morgan, I need to see Colton's room and any medications or hazardous materials in the home. They walked through the house. Colton's room clean and safe. The bathroom. Medications in a high cabinet. Cleaning supplies locked under the sink with a child safety latch. Everything by the book. Janet made notes on her tablet for another 5 minutes, then faced Reese. Based on what I've seen today, there's no evidence of neglect or unsafe conditions. The allegations appear to be unfounded. Reese felt her knees go weak. However, Janet continued, I will be noting your association with the motorcycle club in my report. If future reports are filed, that pattern will be considered. Are you saying she should stop associating with her support system? Vivian asked, her voice sharp. I'm saying that perception matters, and certain associations raise red flags. Only to people with prejudices, Vivian shot back. Miss Morgan has done nothing wrong. She's a dedicated mother providing for her child. If you or anyone else tries to weaponize bigotry against her, we'll pursue legal action for harassment. Janet's face went red. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. Document it however you like. Janet packed up her tablet. This case is closed. But I'd advise caution, Miss Morgan. Not everyone is as understanding as I am. She left. Reese sank onto the couch, her whole body shaking. You did great, Vivian said, sitting next to her. Better than great. She's going to note that I'm friends with bikers. It's going to be in some file somewhere. Let it be. You're not doing anything illegal or harmful. If someone has a problem with it, that's their problem, not yours. Vivian's phone rang. She stepped outside to take it. When she came back in, her expression was strange. That was Decker. He wants you to come to the restaurant. Now. Why? He didn't say, just said it's important. Reese drove to Davidson Street with Colton in the back seat, her hands gripping the wheel too tight. When she pulled up, she saw motorcycles, lots of them. More than 25. Way more. Come on. She counted them as she parked. 50, 70, 100. The street was lined with motorcycles. She got out of the car, lifted Colton onto her hip, and walked toward the restaurant. The door was open. Inside, bikers filled every inch of space. The dining room was packed with leather jackets and beards and tattoos. Decker stood in the center talking to a man Reese didn't recognize. When Decker saw her, he waved her over. Reese, this is Raven. He's the president of the Hells Angels National Chapter. Raven was enormous, 6'6", with gray hair down to his shoulders and eyes that had seen everything. He extended a hand. Heard a lot about you, Raven said. His voice was surprisingly soft. I don't understand what's happening. Word got out about what you did, Raven said, opening your door to brothers in a storm, helping them without asking for anything. That means something to us. Means a lot. So we called in favors, Decker added. Brothers from all over Michigan, some from Ohio and Indiana. They wanted to meet you and help. Help with what? Nash appeared from the kitchen. With everything. We've got electricians, plumbers, carpenters, painters, cooks, designers. Every skill we need to get this place open. And we've got 3 weeks to do it. So we called in the army, Hawk added, grinning. Reese looked around at the sea of faces. Strangers who'd driven hours just to help her. Wow, she asked, her voice barely audible. Raven stepped closer. Because the club takes care of its own. And like Decker said, you're one of us now. He paused. Also, we heard about the CPS call, about that woman trying to shut you down before you even start. We don't like it when people bully single mothers. So we're making a statement. This restaurant is under club protection. Anyone who messes with you messes with all of us. I can't let you do that. You'll scare people away. Some people maybe, Raven admitted. But the right people, the ones worth serving, they'll come because the food's good and the love is real. The rest can eat somewhere else. Tears streamed down Reese's face. Colton patted her cheek. Don't cry, Mama. I'm not sad, baby. She couldn't finish. The emotion was too big for words. Decker came over and put a hand on her shoulder. You showed us kindness when we needed it. Now let us show you what that kindness becomes when it multiplies. Deal. Reese nodded, unable to speak. All right, Decker shouted to the crowd. Let's get to work. We open in 3 weeks. The bikers erupted in cheers and immediately started organizing. Tools appeared, materials, paint, lumber. Someone started setting up a sound system. Another group headed to the kitchen. Reese stood in the middle of it all, holding Colton, watching a miracle unfold. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes approached. I'm Lorraine. I ran a diner in Flint for 30 years before I retired. Heard you need help with recipes and prep systems. Yes, I do. Good. Let's talk menu. Lorraine pulled out a notebook. For the next hour, Reese worked with her on streamlining recipes, creating prep schedules, designing a kitchen workflow that could handle high volume. Lorraine knew everything, how to price dishes, how to minimize waste, how to train staff. You're good, Lorraine said after Reese explained her vision. Real good. You've got instinct. That can't be taught. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we're slammed on a Friday night and 3 orders get messed up and someone sends back a steak. Then you'll know what this business really is. Sounds terrifying, Lorraine laughed. It is, but it's also the best feeling in the world when you get it right. When someone takes a bite and closes their eyes because it's so good. That's what we're chasing. That moment. Reese understood she'd been chasing that her whole life. While she worked with Lorraine, the restaurant transformed around her. Walls that had been dingy yellow were now being painted a warm cream color. The floor was being stripped and refinished. Someone was fixing the broken booth in the corner. Another person was installing new light fixtures. Nash cornered her around 4 p.m. We need to talk equipment. The oven works, but it's old. Same with the grill. They'll last maybe a year before they need replacing. I can't afford new equipment. We're not buying new. We're buying used. I know a guy who liquidates restaurant equipment. He'll cut us a deal. But you need to decide. Do we put money into equipment now? Or do we run what we got and save for emergencies? Reese's head spun. I don't know. What would you do? I'd run what we got, save the cash. When something breaks, we fix it. If it can't be fixed, we replace it then. Okay, that. Nash nodded and walked off. Over the next 2 weeks, Reese lived at the restaurant. 4 a.m. wake-ups, work until midnight. Colton stayed with different bikers during the day, rotating between Hawk's sister and Merrick's daughter, and sometimes just sitting in the corner of the restaurant with crayons while chaos swirled around him. On January 18th, disaster struck. The oven died, not sputtering or struggling, just dead. Nash tried everything, but it was beyond repair. Heating elements are shot, completely gone. We need a new one. How much? $3,000 minimum for a commercial. Used maybe 2. Reese felt sick. I don't have $2,000. I know. Nash pulled out his phone, but I might know a guy. 2 hours later, a delivery truck pulled up with a refurbished commercial oven. The driver, a thick man named Grady with a scar across his knuckles, helped them install it. How much do I owe you? Reese asked when they finished. Grady looked at Nash, then at Reese. Nothing. I can't. Nash pulled my kid out of a burning car 3 years ago. I owe him a life. An oven's the least I can do. Another miracle. Another door opening just when everything seemed lost. On January 20th, the transformation accelerated. Electricians rewired the entire building in a day. Plumbers upgraded all the fixtures. Carpenters built custom shelving and repaired structural damage Vincent hadn't even known was there. Painters transformed the dining room into something warm and inviting. In 3 days, they accomplished what would have taken a professional crew 3 months. Reese tried to keep track of everyone, tried to thank them all, but there were too many. She gave up and just worked alongside them, scrubbing and painting and hauling trash while Colton made friends with every single person who walked through the door. On January 28th, the health inspector arrived. Roland Fletcher was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a clipboard that looked like it had seen better days. He walked through the kitchen with agonizing slowness, checking every corner, every surface. He opened the walk-in freezer, tested the temperature, checked the hand-washing station, examined the food storage, made notes. So many notes. Your 3-compartment sink doesn't have proper spacing, he said. Nash stepped forward. We measured according to code, 24 inches between basins. Roland pulled out a tape measure, 24 inches exactly. He made another note. Fine. He continued his inspection. Reese held her breath as he examined her prep area, her cooking stations, the serving line. Every few minutes he'd pause and write something down, his expression giving nothing away. After 40 minutes, he closed his notebook. You pass, he said simply. Reese nearly collapsed. We pass, conditional pass. You need to get your grease trap serviced within 30 days, and I want to see documentation of pest control services. But structurally and sanitarily, you meet code. He pulled out paperwork and signed it. You're cleared to open. The bikers in the dining room erupted in cheers. Roland looked startled, like he'd forgotten they were there. How many people are working here? He asked. Volunteers, Decker said quickly. We're helping get the place ready. Roland looked at the sea of leather jackets and raised an eyebrow, but didn't comment. He handed Reese the signed paperwork and left. The second the door closed, Reese burst into tears. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears, every kind of tears. We did it, Nash said, grinning. We actually did it. We're not done yet, Decker reminded them. We still need to finish the dining room, train staff, and finalize the menu. We've got 9 days until soft opening. 9 days to pull together everything they had been building. Reese called Lorraine. We passed inspection. Good. Now the real work starts. How many items are on your menu? 15. Cut it to 8. You can't handle 15 items with a small kitchen and limited staff. Give them 8 perfect dishes instead of 15 mediocre ones. Which 8? The ones you could make in your sleep, the ones that taste like home. Reese spent the next day in the kitchen with Lorraine, testing and retesting. They settled on fried chicken, pulled pork, mac and cheese, collard greens, black-eyed peas, cornbread, peach cobbler, and banana pudding. Simple menu, but every dish was perfect. This is what you lead with, Lorraine said. Simple, honest soul food. No fancy twists, no fusion nonsense. Just food that makes people feel loved. What about prices? Chicken plate $12, pork plate $13, sides are $4 each, desserts $5. Keep it affordable. You're feeding the community, not trying to be upscale. Reese did the math in her head. With food costs and overhead, the margins were tight, really tight. I'll barely break even at those prices. For the first few months, yeah, but you'll build loyalty. People will come back. They'll tell friends. You're playing the long game. Reese hoped Lorraine was right. She needed staff, couldn't run a restaurant alone. I know someone, Hawk said. My niece, Jolene, she's 20, needs work, good with people. Jolene showed up that afternoon. She was shy, but eager, with quick hands and a good memory. You ever wait tables? Reese asked. No, ma'am, but I can learn. You're hired. Be here tomorrow's at 8. We'll train. Reese also needed kitchen help. Lorraine made a call and produced a young man named Silas, who'd recently graduated from culinary school and couldn't find work. Why can't you find work? Reese asked during his interview. Record, Silas said bluntly. Did 6 months for possession when I was 19. Most places won't hire me. Reese understood that, understood being judged for things you couldn't change. Can you cook? Yes, ma'am. Show me. Silas cooked her a simple dish, sautéed chicken with vegetables. It was good, clean technique, proper seasoning, no wasted movement. You start tomorrow, 8 a.m. Silas's face lit up. Seriously, everybody deserves a second chance. Welcome to Mama's Soul Kitchen. Training happened fast and frantic. Reese taught Jolene how to take orders, manage tables, handle difficult customers. She taught Silas her recipes, her techniques, her standards. The food has to be perfect, Reese said. Not good, not okay, perfect? Because people are coming here for more than food. They're coming for the feeling, the memory of their grandmother's kitchen. We can't disappoint them. I understand, Silas said. February 7th arrived faster than Reese was ready for. The soft opening, the test run. By 5 p.m., people started gathering outside. Not just a few people, dozens, then hundreds. Decker came into the kitchen where Reese was having a quiet breakdown. You see that line? I see it. We're not ready for that many people. Yes, you are. You've got this. What if the food's not good enough? Then they won't come back. But I've tasted your food, Reese. It's better than good enough. It's extraordinary. At 6 p.m., they opened the doors. The first guests were an elderly couple who'd been waiting outside for an hour. The man used a cane. The woman held his arm. Welcome to Mama's Soul Kitchen, Jolene said, showing them to a table. Reese watched from the kitchen window as they sat down as Jolene brought them menus as they ordered. First ticket, Silas called out. 2 chicken plates, extra cornbread. Reese's hands shook as she started cooking. This was it, the moment everything came down to. She fried the chicken exactly how her mama had taught her. Crispy outside, juicy inside. She plated it with mac and cheese that was creamy and rich collard greens with ham hocks and cornbread that was still warm from the oven. Silas delivered the plates. Reese watched through the window as the elderly man took his first bite. He closed his eyes. His wife smiled and touched his hand. He took another bite, then looked toward the kitchen and nodded. Reese felt something release in her chest. Orders kept coming. Table 2 wanted pulled pork. Table 3 wanted chicken. Table 5 wanted to know if they could get extra peach cobbler. The kitchen became organized chaos, but it was working. They were actually doing it. By 8 p.m., they'd served over 100 people. The dining room was packed. People were waiting outside for tables. Mrs. Lowell from the laundromat came in. Reese saw her through the window and tensed. But Mrs. Lowell sat down, ordered a chicken plate, and when the food arrived, she took a bite, and her whole face changed. The suspicion melted away, replaced by something softer. When she finished, she came to the kitchen door. Miss Morgan? Reese wiped her hands and came out. Yes, ma'am. I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you, about all of this. That was the best meal I've had in 20 years. Thank you. I'm sorry about the CPS call. That was me. I was scared of what this neighborhood was becoming. But I see now I was just scared of change. Reese didn't know what to say. I'd like to make it up to you, Mrs. Lowell continued. I'm going to tell everyone I know to eat here. And I mean everyone. She left a $50 tip on a $15 meal. By closing time at 10 p.m., Reese was exhausted but euphoric. They'd served 150 people. The response had been overwhelming. Decker gathered everyone after the last customer left. That was incredible. Every single person I talked to said the food was amazing. They'll be back, and they'll bring friends. We're ready for opening day, Lorraine added. The kinks are small, nothing we can't handle. Reese looked around at her team. At Jolene, who'd handled tables like a pro, despite never waiting before. At Silas, who'd kept pace in the kitchen without complaint. At the bikers, who'd built this place with their own hands. Thank you, she said, her voice thick. All of you. I couldn't have done this without you. You haven't done it yet, Decker said. Monday's the real test, grand opening. That's when we see if this thing flies. Monday morning, February 10th. Reese woke up at 4 a.m. too nervous to sleep. Opening day. The day that would determine everything. She got to the restaurant at 5. Decker and Nash were already there setting up. Couldn't sleep either, Decker asked. Not a chance. By 8 a.m., there was already a line outside. By 9, when they officially opened the line wrapped around the block. Reese stood in the kitchen, her heart pounding. This was it. First ticket, Silas called out. They fell into rhythm. Orders came in, food went out. The kitchen was hot and loud and perfect. Jolene moved between tables like she'd been doing it for years. Silas kept pace, never falling behind. Around noon, a news crew showed up. Local station. They'd heard about the single mom and the Hells Angels and wanted a story. Decker handled the interview while Reese cooked. She could hear him through the window talking about community, about helping neighbors, about what happens when people choose kindness over fear. The reporter came into the kitchen to film. Miss Morgan, how does it feel to have your dream come true? Reese looked up from the chicken she was frying, sweat dripping down her face, her hands moving on autopilot. It feels like coming home, she said. Every plate that goes out that window is a piece of my mama's love. Every person who eats here is a family. That's what this is really about. Not the business, the connection. The reporter smiled. That's beautiful. By closing time, they had served 300 people, 300 plates of food. The register was full. The reviews on social media were glowing. People were already making reservations for the rest of the week. Reese counted the money with shaking hands. After expenses, they'd made $800 profit on day one. This is good, Lorraine said, reviewing the numbers. Really good. You keep this up, you'll be profitable within 3 months. That night, after everyone left, Reese sat alone in the empty dining room. She pulled out her phone and opened her photos, found one of her mama from 5 years ago standing in her kitchen smiling. We did it, Mama, Reese whispered. We really did it. Her phone rang. Bryn. Reese almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. I saw the news story, Bryn said. No preamble. The one about your restaurant. Yeah. It looked good, really good. Reese waited. I was wrong, Bryn said quietly. About the bikers, about the restaurant, about you. I was scared for you, and I let that turn into judgment. I'm sorry. Reese felt tears building. Thank you. Can I come visit? I want to see it. Want to see you and Colton. Yeah, you can come. They talked for another 20 minutes. Really talked for the first time in years. When Reese finally got home, Colton was asleep at Hawk's house. She picked him up gently, careful not to wake him. How'd it go? Hawk asked. It went perfectly. Good. Kid was worried about you. Reese carried Colton home and tucked him into bed. She sat on the edge of his mattress, watching him sleep. Everything she'd done, every risk she'd taken, every moment of terror, it was all for him. To give him a better life. To show him that you could come from nothing and build something beautiful. The next 3 months flew by in a blur of long hours and steady growth. Word spread about Mama's Soul Kitchen. The reviews piled up. People came from across Detroit to taste the food that everyone was talking about. Reese hired 2 more servers and another kitchen helper. She paid them fair wages, more than she could really afford, but she remembered what it was like to be underpaid and desperate. The bikers came by regularly, not to work, just to eat, to check in, to remind Reese she wasn't alone. Decker brought his mother for her birthday. She was 82, frail but sharp. She took 1 bite of Reese's fried chicken and started crying. Tastes like my mama's, she said, tastes like home. That's when Reese knew she'd succeeded. Not because of the money or the reviews or the lines out the door, but because she was giving people exactly what she'd set out to give them. Love, memory, connection. On August 10th, 6 months after opening, Reese made the final payment on the initial loan from the bikers. She'd paid them back in full exactly as promised. Decker tried to refuse the last payment. Keep it. You'll need it. A deal's a deal, Reese said firmly. You gave me a chance. I'm paying it back. Then consider it a gift for Colton's college fund. Reese's eyes filled. Decker, I'm not arguing about this. Take the money, put it somewhere safe. When that boy grows up, he's going to need it. On December 24th, 1 year after that first frozen night, Mama's Soul Kitchen had a waiting list on weekends. They'd been featured in 3 magazines, 2 newspapers, and 1 national food blog. Reese had been invited to cook at a charity event with celebrity chefs. Her restaurant wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Colton turned 3 at a party held in the restaurant, surrounded by bikers and neighbors and customers who'd become friends. He wore a paper crown and ate 3 pieces of birthday cake while everyone sang to him. "Make a wish, baby," Reese said. Colton closed his eyes tight, then blew out the candles. When Reese asked what he wished for, he said, "I wished for you to be happy forever." Reese held him close and realized she already was. Standing in her restaurant on a busy Saturday night, watching her team work in perfect harmony, watching customers enjoy food she'd made with her own hands, watching Colton color at a corner table while Hawk kept him company, Reese understood something fundamental. Kindness wasn't just a nice gesture. It was a seed. You planted it in the dark, not knowing if anything would grow. But if you watered it with hope and protected it with courage, it could become something miraculous. It could become a lifeline when you needed it most. It could become a family when you had none. It could become a restaurant that fed bodies and souls in equal measure. She'd opened her door to 25 freezing bikers on the worst night of her life, and they'd opened 1,000 doors for her in return. That's what kindness did. It multiplied, it echoed, it transformed the world, one small act at a time, until the small acts became something so big you could barely remember what it felt like to be alone in the cold. On a warm day in late June, 18 months after opening, a young woman walked into the restaurant during the afternoon lull. She was maybe 26, thin, with dark circles under her eyes and clothes that had seen better days. She held a little girl's hand, maybe 3 years old, who looked around with wide, scared eyes. Reese was wiping down tables. She looked up and saw herself 2 years ago. "Can I help you?" Reese asked. The woman's voice came out small. "Miss Morgan, I'm Paige. I'm a single mom, 2 kids. I just lost my job, and I saw your story on the news a while back. How you started from nothing." She took a breath. "I was wondering if you need any help. I can clean, wash dishes, anything. I'll work for food if that's all you can do." Reese set down her rag, walked over to Paige and her daughter. "When can you start?" Paige's eyes went wide. "Really, but I don't have experience. I don't have references. I, Neither did I," Reese said. "Someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. Now I'm giving you one. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't. Someday when you're on your feet, you help someone else. That's how this works." Reese pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. "Also, there's a unit above the laundromat next door. The owner's a friend now, Mrs. Lowell. It's empty. Talk to her. Tell her I sent you. She'll work with you on rent." Paige started crying. "I don't understand. Why are you helping me?" "Because someone helped me. And that kindness doesn't stop with me. It multiplies." 6 months later, Paige was assistant manager. She'd moved into the apartment above the laundromat with her 2 kids. She'd enrolled in night classes at the community college. She was building a life. On December 24th, 2 years after that first frozen night, the restaurant closed early for a special event. Reese, the bikers, her staff, Bryn, who'd moved back to Detroit, Paige and her kids, Mrs. Lowell, and 100 others gathered to serve Christmas dinner to 200 people from the local homeless shelter. Free food, free warmth, free love. Colton, now 4 years old, helped hand out toys donated by the Hells Angels toy drive. The same drive that had gotten Decker and his brothers caught in that blizzard 2 years ago. Reese stood outside for a moment watching snow fall softly on Davidson Street. The sign above the restaurant glowed warm in the winter darkness. Mama's Soul Kitchen. Below it in smaller letters, "Where kindness multiplies." Decker came out and stood beside her. "You did good, Reese." "We did good," she corrected. "All of us." "You think about that night much, the night we showed up at your door?" "Every day." "You know what I think about?" Decker asked. "I think about how close you came to not opening that door. How easy it would have been to say no, to keep us out in the cold. I almost did. But you didn't. And that one choice, that one moment of kindness, when you had every reason to be afraid, it changed everything. For you, for Colton, for Paige and her kids, for everyone who eats here and feels like somebody loves them." Reese watched through the window as Colton laughed at something Hawk said. As Paige helped serve plates, as strangers became family over shared food. "My mama used to say that kindness is a seed," Reese said. "You plant it not knowing if anything will grow. But if you water it with hope and protect it with courage, it becomes something miraculous." She was right. Yeah, she was. Inside, someone started playing music. Old soul songs. The kind Reese's mama used to sing in the kitchen. Decker held out his hand. Come on, let's go back inside. People are waiting. Reese took his hand but paused at the door. She looked back at the street one more time, at the snow falling, at the warm light spilling from the restaurant windows, at the motorcycles lined up at the curb like guardians. 2 years ago, she'd had $7.42 in a freezing house and no hope. Now she had a restaurant, a family, a future, all because she'd opened a door. All because 25 strangers had knocked. All because kindness, once planted, had grown into something bigger than any of them could have imagined. Reese smiled and walked back inside, back to the warmth and the laughter and the love, back to the life she'd built from nothing but hope and hard work and the simple choice to help when help was needed. The door closed behind her and the light stayed on.